Welcome back to the Coroner's Report, bringing you the latest updates in horror entertainment. This roundup will be an exclusive streaming service edition of news coverage.
Contact established.
I'll take it from here. As much as the Coroner's Report strives to provide you peace of mind in your darkest hour, I'm afraid we have grave news in store. Your trusted news that will refuse to skimp on all the gory details? Today's lead correspondent, Inkarnate, will play your bearer of bad news. We go now to our Shadowcaster for a sign of things to come. And what better omen can we ask for than a word from our sponsors? Think of the power to tune out the whole world placed in your hands. Now think again, because Jabra Headsets puts that power in your ears. Listen closely. From workout earbuds to Bluetooth music headsets and office hearing devices. So, if other brands play your music sounding like a broken record, march to the beat of a different tune with Jabra. If you're an HD snob like me, you probably buy Samsung for all your major electronics. Catch up on your favorite horror classics on one of their Ultra HD TVs. Watch one of Scream Factory's Blu-rays on their 4K players. Keep up with updates from 80s horror documentary In Search of Darkness on a high-end tablet. Subscribe to your favorite YouTuber through one of their Galaxy phones. I have so many Samsung devices, I've always thought they should be paying me. Well, now they can, and you can help. If you use the link in the description for either Samsung or Jabra purchases, it'll help the channel out tremendously. With the promotional considerations accounted for, it's on with the show.
Once again, this is rumor control. Here are the facts.
We open today's bulletin with news of Amazon having concluded their purchase of MGM Studios in what is being referred to as a treasure trove of IP. Well, thank God a buyout is getting a positive spin while we endure media hysteria over Twitter's hostile takeover and poison pills.
Obsessed much?
Is such invasion verbiage and suicide imagery really necessary? Digital retail space is being purchased by a billionaire named Elon Musk, not Elon Putin assaulting foreign soil, so relax. Anyway, with plans for reimagining this embarrassment of Hollywood riches that they've purchased, I could fantasy book their intentions to mine such series as the RoboCop IP, the Rocky brand, the James Bond license, or their most renowned franchise, Legally Blonde. But, this being a horror report, what say we get to the films and franchises of fear fiction? Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Let's break it down. Now then, as we can see, this is a pretty extensive list and impressive library of scary movies. Having said that, if there's one thing that the Mind's Eye prides itself on, it's sobering reality. So best believe that extends to news coverage. I've gushed about Scream Factory enough on my channel and the service they provide of a fresh coat of HD paint to iconic films and cult classics. And the horror films under MGM's banner do have the chance to have new life breathed into them. However, two things to keep in mind. Number one, that $8.5 billion price tag understandably comes with the expectation of return on investment. Now, I already name-dropped MGM's core tentpoles Amazon doubtlessly hopes to bank on, so their focus would be to zero in on the big names. Secondly, what I didn't mention is that their news article buzzword of reimagining is a code word for that movie fan dreaded word for remakes. I know, believe me, I know. It's a major ask and a big if for Amazon to see the value in any of these titans of the genre and value their fandom instead of exploit it. You don't need me to remind you what horror remakes have looked like in the last 2 decades. Hell, look at the Stephen King adaptations in the last 10 years. It Chapter 1 was practically a fluke. More on that later. You want another sad fact? When it comes to rebooting these celebrated films, it isn't even just about throwing money at the problem. Sure, we horror fans have spoken many a time about a movie that was given a shoestring budget, but Amazon's own Lord of the Rings show, The Rings of Power, is set to cost between $100 and $150 million per season, pissing its fans off something fierce with woke messaging before the first episode has even aired. But okay, it's not all doom and gloom. The winning formula would mean creative and passionate showrunners and writers to match the talent of the filmmakers that made the originals the classics that they are, in addition to reasonably spending costs to realize their vision. I mean, look at the new heights that Brian Fuller brought Hannibal Lecter to, or how the aforementioned It Chapter 1 knocked it out of the park just 5 years ago. Now, if I can dispense my critic hat and trade it for fanboy-tinted nostalgia glasses, in all honesty, part of the fun with announcements like this is cherry-picking your favorite throwback films with the prospect of a sequel or reimagining. And for my money, here's hoping we get a balls-to-the-wall, oddball sequel to Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
What are you gonna do? Knock my block off?
And a continuation to the lore of Pumpkinhead on one condition. Please revamp the creature effects. I happen to love this movie in part because of the myth surrounding its monster, but even hardcore fans have to admit that the OG design is a little too xenomorph. As for the rest of the horror gems that Amazon has on their hands, let's hope for the best, but temper our expectations. Next up, we have a Hail Mary attempt. With the July 14th release date and brand spanking new McDonald's poster, Netflix's live-action Resident Evil series is gearing up promotion for its summer release. When I say series, I mean an actual episodic program, not like that cleverly titled Infinite Darkness, which was a glorified CGI movie broken up into 4 parts. Strange that the pill is labeled Joy. Sounds like a mind control device drug from that We Happy Few game. Yes, we all know the identity politics, SJW, race-swapping, representation reasoning behind the casting of Lance Reddick to play cisgendered white male Albert Wesker.
Cool Whip.
But I gotta be honest, the more I thought about this choice of actor, the more I like it. Given his portrayal in the John Wick movies, Mr. Reddick does give off the impression of a cold and calculating figure with some actual screen presence. This is exactly what an Albert Wesker character needs, and dear Loud, he can't be any worse than the impotent performance of the character from 2021's remake. Look, I ain't exactly sold on the premise. Not only does it follow Albert Wesker's 2 daughters instead of, any of the established heroes, but it's split between the timelines of past and present. New monsters and the pervasive mystery could be interesting, but this 8-episode program has its work cut out for it. I'm willing to give this a chance because, dear Loud, is this series in dire need for a win. As I covered in my Horror 2021 Year in Review, the 25th anniversary of the Resident Evil series was anything but a banner year for the franchise. One woefully derivative and overrated 8th entry with RE Village, the previously mentioned boring and pointless CGI movie Infinite Darkness, and a decent yet forgettable film, Welcome to Raccoon City, when the brand needed a home run. And instead, what did it get for its second chance in theaters? This dud. I'll reserve judgment and hold out hope, but it's up at the starting blocks on its back heel, so it will be an uphill battle to be sure. It can't be as bad as certain other recent horror and fringe genre streaming shows.
As you know, this is a highly complex case.
The following is a paid act of desperation. So, HBO Max is in full content mode, resurrecting former glory days, spinning off moderate success stories, and generally pumping out anything with even the slightest name brand recognition. On the current slate, we've got a Penguin spin-off to that latest crappy Batman movie, which, why? A True Detective revival that I'd hasten to remind listeners hasn't mattered in nearly a decade because of falling off a cliff in terms of relevancy after Season 1. Game of Thrones offshoot House of the Dragon, which I'm actually curious to watch. And, of course, the subject of this news piece, Welcome to Derry, the prequel series to the recent Stephen King It films. What did I just finish saying about the lame Resident Evil titles? So, the long and short of it is exactly what you'd expect. An origin story of the Pennywise clown, as well as the dawn of the 27-year curse, which would set the series in the 1960s in order to lead up to the events of It Chapter 1. Variety noted that Andy and Barbara Muschietti are back on board to produce the series, and therein lies the problem. I plan to review It Chapter 2 down the line, but suffice it to say, that sequel was cheeks, especially compared to the blockbuster 2017 film. I have no faith that the handlers of this franchise learned a single lesson from the egregious failings from that follow-up. And with husband and wife, director/producer Andy Muschietti and bride brought back into the fold, that doesn't do anything to alleviate my concerns. The only work that hack director has even gained since working on the Stephen King classic involves reining in a different kind of clown as a leading man. Dude's a gun for hire, not a visionary filmmaker. You couple all that with the fact that this is supposed to be an original entry, not based on the Stephen King book, just tells me the plot will either be derivative of the movies, rip off the 90s miniseries as a quote-unquote homage, attempt to forcibly connect to other Stephen King stories, or just plain suck. I realize we haven't gotten an official plot or trailer, but this program's handlers are going to have to work overtime for me to even muster the beginnings of giving a crap about this sequel. On a side note, one side project that does have my interest is the Pennywise documentary due out this summer. The story of It covers the 90s made-for-TV two-part movie. The documentary combines pre-production and post-reception, delving into what went into adapting this novel to live action and the effect that Tim Curry's famous portrayal left on scarred children over 30 years after. Since it'll be streaming exclusively on Screambox this summer, fingers crossed that its Blu-ray release is soon to follow. Maybe in time for Halloween. I'm on a highway to hell. On the highway to hell. For our top story, now we're talking. Since April is the midpoint in the year leading to October, horror streaming service Shudder has created an annual celebration out of the month. This year's kickoff to the month-long festivity sees 4 original films. Let's break it down. Break it down! March 31st, Night's End, a haunted house/exorcist film. April 7th, See For Me, Home Invasion. April 15th, The Cellar, Missing Persons Case. April 21st, Virus 32, a viral outbreak resulting in civil rioting. Clearly a work of pure fiction. This is what I would like to see more out of the genre. Half these movies could suck for all I care, but the effort is appreciated, not just in crafting 4 separate exclusive films, but just acknowledging our timing from our favorite autumn holiday and making an event out of it. If Christmas starts a day earlier every year, and summer blockbusters start in spring, then why can't we make up our own excuse to celebrate horror 6 months before sexy nurses and the candy companies overtake October? Kudos to Shudder for crafting this idea, sticking with it after all these years, and offering a promo code HALF2022 to get 50% off of the Shudder subscription for 6 months until May 1st, 2022. So, there you have it, and that's your news coverage. The streaming wars are in full swing, and content is their arms race. They say to the victor go the spoils, so time will tell if us horror fans reap the rewards. I've been Inkarnate reminding you, no news is good news.